What's up? My name is Tyler Tiede. I'm from Rochester, New York, and this is what's going to be in my bag for the start of the 2025 season. So the first thing I want to point out is that this little side pouch right here, only thing that's in it is my warm-up band. I used to keep some discs in here, but you're going to see a pretty big theme of this bag is that I'm lowering the amount of discs in my bag by a little bit. And so this side pouch is no longer needed. It's usually where I put my keys, wallet, AirPods case, phone, whatever it may be. I got a nice little pouch here where I can put everything, and then the side pouches can be used for all sorts of like actual accessories. Anyway, let's get to the bag in general. Putting putters, starting off the season with some Flex 2 P2s. These are just regular D-Line Flex 2 P2s with the stamp wiped off. Used the Flex 3 special blend for a while last year. I liked them, but during the start of the season, it's a bit colder outside, want a little bit of extra grip. I really do like these, so it's possible I could use them throughout the season depending on how they feel, but it'll be either these or the Flex 3s. Next, for throwing putters for backhand, I've got two in the top pocket right here. First up, most understable, we have a base plastic Logic. This is an EXO Hard. I like the little bit of a stiffer feel. I like the release it gets out of my hand. You know, again, earlier in the season, maybe not the best grip on this thing, but it'll do great work in the summer. I got this pretty recently and I'm still working on beating it up a little bit. The idea is it's gonna be a bit more understable than my regular Cosmic Fury Logic. And once this starts to get beat in, it'll be a great turnover or hyzer flip putter that I can use for all sorts of situations. And then as a complement to that, one of my favorite discs that I started throwing last year that I'm gonna keep throwing this year, that is the Cosmic Fury 1. This is Kyle Klein's Logic. I have a Cosmic Fury 2, but it seemed like it was a little bit less stable. This has that really nice stability. It's very dependable. Doesn't really turn over on me unless I give it that anhyzer. It's just kind of a do-it-all putter. It does whatever you want it to. It'll hold hyzer lines. It'll hold a straight line. It'll hold a little bit of a turnover. It's just very, very dependable. Doesn't turn over on me. Doesn't fight out super hard. I love hitting it on just straight shots in the woods, approaches, you name it. Then we're gonna get to the main bag right here. So for forehand approach, overstable approach, I have one Z Zone. This is kind of gonna be for most of my approaches, nice and overstable. Can flex it on forehand, backhand, can throw it on hyzers, forehand, backhand. I can even get it to push straight pretty well, and it'll fade out pretty dependably. It's pretty good into the wind. And then as a complement to that, I have a Jawbreaker Zone. I have a new one, but this is actually an older one that I beat up a little bit a couple years ago. Took it out of my bag because it got a little bit flippy, like a little bit too flippy, but I've realized that I really like having this understable zone in my bag because I feel really comfortable throwing it on forehands, and I don't really have an understable putter that I like throwing on forehands, and I love how this feels in my hand for forehands. Or something like the Logic, while I could maybe try to learn how to throw forehands on it, I'd rather just have this as a nice understable forehand disc. I can flip it up into gaps where I gotta get like a little, 200 foot, 150 foot up shot. It'll still fade out a little bit. I can kind of hit it on a little bit of anhyzer and it'll just fade the entire way. I have to get around a tree or up and around a corner to get to the basket. I'm really only throwing this thing on forehands because it flies really similar to those other two putters that I showed you when thrown on backhand. There might be some very specific situations where maybe I want the exact stability of this particular disc, but for the most part, I'm throwing this for touch forehands. Next up, we got mid-ranges. For my most understable mid-range, I have an Eclipse 2.0 Hex. This thing started pretty overstable. I was surprised, and over the past, I would say 6 months, I guess the last couple months of my season and then throughout the off season, it's gotten pretty beat up to be a pretty nice flip up to straight, maybe a little bit of turn mid-range. Not really throwing it in the wind all that much, but I can hit gaps with it really well. I can give it to have some turnover, and I think the more I throw it, the more it's just gonna kind of keep beating in, keep getting that nice flip up, a little bit more turnover. Very dependable. Huge fan of these Eclipse Hexes. If you don't have one, I think you should really pick one up. Next up, we have kind of an interim slot in the bag. I've been looking for something between my Hex and my Pyro, which I'll show you in a minute. And for right now, I've landed on the Trust. This is in Royal Grand plastic. I think it fills that slot pretty well. The one thing I'm not a huge fan of is I can't really forehand it. So if I want to, I can forehand my Hex, I can forehand my Pyro. I can't really forehand this really well, just the profile of the disc. So when the actual balance comes out, it's quite possible that could fit that slot because it seems like it's gonna be in between those two discs that I mentioned. But for now, for backhands, if I want something that isn't quite gonna flip up as much as my hex, but isn't gonna dump out like a pyro, the Trust is the disc I'm gonna be grabbing for. Pretty much just goes dead straight. I can get it to turn over a little bit if I hit it on anhyzer. For the most part, I just want it to go dead straight on a flat line and then just a tiny little fade out at the end. Then jumping up in stability a little bit more, we have the pyro. I had a Cosmic Neutron pyro in the bag for a while. I switched to this Prism Proton pyro. It feels a little bit better in my hand, looks a little bit nicer, and it's still board flat, flies fantastically. It's kind of like very similar stability and feel to the Zone, just goes a little bit further. I can hit it flat, it'll fade out a little bit earlier than the Trust. I can hit it on forehands, I can flex it. I can do so much with this disc. It's super, super nice. I can get it out to like 300, 320 with pretty good ease. It glides really well, but it always has that stability that you want in the wind or when you want it to finish left on a backhand or right on a forehand. And that's when I'm reaching for this disc, is when I want that extra stability, when I want that integrity that the pyro gives. And if I need something even more than that, I have the deflector. This is like an approach disc and a mid-range in one because it's so overstable, it doesn't really go very far. So this is basically if I want to throw a Zone or if I want to throw a pyro and I need it to be just disgustingly overstable. If there's crazy wind, if I need a huge skip, if I need to flex it on this much of an angle and get it to fight out, that's the deflector right here. I don't know how long this particular deflector is gonna stay in the bag. I haven't beat it up that much because I don't throw it that often. It's not like I'm throwing it off the tee all the time. So it's stayed pretty stable for quite a while. But I imagine once it starts to get to a point where it gets beat up a little bit, it's kind of getting to a sweet spot right now where it's not that crazy overstable it was when I first got it. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But for now, it's staying really overstable. I don't need it very often, but when I do need it, I'm glad I have it. Next up, we're gonna go to 7 speeds. The 7-speed slot in my bag has evolved quite a bit over the years, and you guys might be surprised to see that I'm only pulling 2 discs out of my bag right now. I really just felt like I really only need 2 discs, 1 mold. They're both FD1s. I love the Skywalker, but I've really been liking this particular S-Line FD1. Flies a lot like my Skywalker. It's pretty easy to see. I love the look of the stamp and it feels really good in the hand. I have like 4 Skywalkers though. If I ever lose this thing, that's what's gonna replace it. They're pretty interchangeable. But I have this S-Line FD1, similar to some of the other discs that I've put in my bag recently. All these discs that are like a little bit newer are gonna be great this time of year because it's gonna be windy in the Northeast. I'm gonna have to deal with that spring weather. And so I'm fine with starting to beat these up, and then as I get into the summer, a disc like this is gonna start to be a bit more of a straight flyer with a little bit of fade. Right now, it's a little bit closer to my C-line than I would want, but it's gonna start to fill in that slot really well. For the most part, this is just go straight. I can hit on a little bit of turnover, but it's kind of like, think of your slightly beat up T-bird. It's just gonna go straight and fade out a little bit. It reminds me of my old Eagles even. And then for a bit more overstable, I try to keep a pretty new C-line FD1 in the bag whenever I can. Pretty overstable, not crazy overstable. Can hit it flat and just let it fade out. I can kind of flex a little bit, it'll turn a little bit and then fade out. I can hit it on forehands and backhands, both of those obviously. And it's super dependable, just my go-to disc for anything between 300 and 400. I can really hit it on so many different lines and it's very, very dependable. Next up, we'll move on to what I'm gonna call control drivers, a little bit of a step up from my Fairway. And you'll notice that I don't have the FD or a Leopard 3 or anything of that like understable class in my bag right now. And that's because the only disc I really need in that slot is a 9-speed. This is my first run CD1 that I put in the bag, I think maybe a little over a year ago. It has a little bit more stability than your typical CD1, but it still flips up really nice. If I want something that's less stable than my FD1, my S-Line, I can reach for this thing. If I want it to not go quite as far, because this thing does go pretty far, I can just throw it a little bit softer. Anytime I need something a little bit more understable, something that will turn over and go 400 feet, but I need it to hit on like a specific woods line, anything that's just a little bit more understable, this is what I'm going for. It's super dependable. You can do so much with it. This is like my go-to control driver, understable disc, sort of a mixture of like a control and a fairway driver. Very dependable. I feel really comfortable with this disc, and that's why it stayed in the bag. And the other discs that did similar things are out. I'm trying to do it all with just this guy. And so far, it's working wonders. Then we got the overstable 9 speeds. I've got 2 Firebirds in the bag. One, we have a Nate Sexton Firebird. I believe this is a 2021. I love this run. I love the stamp. It feels really good in my hand. I love it for forehands. I'm throwing this on forehands all the time. It's a little bit straighter than my more overstable Firebird. It's super dependable. I can hit it flat and it'll fade out dependably really well. I can throw it into the wind. I can hit it on like a little bit of anhyzer and it will fight out. It has really good ground play because it's a bit of a gummier plastic. There's not much to say about it, but there's a lot to say about it. Like, you know what it does, but it's a really good disc and I can always rely on it. And then if I want something a little bit more overstable, I have this Champion Firebird. Like I said, the Nate Sexton Firebird I really like for forehands, probably because it's a little bit more understable and the plastic feels good in my hands. I particularly like this flat top Champion Firebird for backhands. I prefer it a little bit more for backhands. I'll still throw it on forehands, especially if I want more stability, if I want a really good skip or ground play. Yeah, just a little bit more overstable, a little bit more dependable. You'll see me swapping this out for a Draco every once in a while because they're pretty similar discs, but I always love to have a Champion style flat top Firebird disc in my bag. I rely on it all the time. Anything that's like, 300 feet out, I can just hit it on a hyzer on an easy little shot and it'll go there. If I got to hit it out to like 400 and a little bit of a flex line, I know I can do that. Very, very dependable, very useful. Using this thing all the time. Then the newest disc in my bag that kind of bridges the gap between my distance drivers and my sort of control or fairway drivers is a PD. This is the Nordic Phenom 1. So it's a swirly S-line plastic. I think it's a little bit less stable than like a stock C-line PD. And again, I'm gonna hope to beat this thing up a little bit. It's gonna be windy, it's gonna be cold, so I'm fine with it being a little bit more overstable. If you haven't seen my video that I threw this on a bunch of holes recently, definitely go check it out. It flies straight, super, super long, just fades out a little bit at the end. I can hit it on forehand and backhand, super clean release. It has kind of that fairway feeling rim. It's just a very, very dependable disc, and it has that dependability that I can't 100% trust with my distance drivers, but if I want to get some distance out of something, especially in the woods, or I want it to just hold straight for a really long time but still go far, this is what I'm going for. But if I really want some distance, if I want to see that full turn out of a disc, I've got a couple of distance drivers in the bag. I have 4 here. We'll start with one that I have 3 of, the same mold. That is the Emperor. If you haven't been watching the channel, I've been loving the Emperor lately. I've gotten rid of my destroyers because I've just liked the Emperor. From what I understand, these are the Avery Jenkins destroyer mold, so Innova doesn't really make destroyers like this anymore, I don't think, or at least not this many varieties of plastic, so it's a little bit different. I know it's technically a destroyer, but I've been loving the Emperor. So for my just kind of straight flying, more understable, I have a bottom stamp S-line. This will certainly start to get beat out throughout the year and become more understable, but for now, I can hit it on nice distance lines, forehand, backhand. I mean, any of these distance drivers, I'm throwing forehand, backhand. Into a headwind, I can even hit it on a lot of hyzer and it'll flip up and turn. I can get it on big turnover lines. I can hit it on distance lines. Very nice, kind of understable, so not using it all the time, but there's a ton of situations where it's very useful. Step up in stability, again, not in the stability slot that I want it to be. All 3 of these are like, if this is like the stability range where this is understable and this is overstable, they're all 3 of them just grouped over a little bit. And throughout the year, as it's gonna get less windy and a bit warmer and I beat them up a little bit, they'll slide a little bit to be a bit more understable. And then once the season really starts to get going, they'll be perfect for me. But for right now, when it's windy, when it's cold, when I need a little bit more stability and reliability at the start of the season, perfectly fine for me. So this is a Luster C blend Emperor, very reliable, has a little bit of turn if I hit it flat, if I hit it hard, but it will always fade out on me. It's not gonna super turn over into the wind. I can hit it on hyzer in the wind, it'll even pick up and turn over. A decent amount of stability for an Emperor, but very, very reliable, and definitely gonna find a way to be very useful in my bag. And like I mentioned in the video, it just got like a little mellow dome to it that just gives it that little bit of extra distance potential, but it's not anything crazy where it's gonna be super squirrely, especially on like a headwind. It's still super reliable, kind of just like the perfect sweet spot for a distance driver. Then I have a Halo C blend Emperor, and this is quite a bit more overstable, decent amount of dome. You can hear that heartbeat there. just kind of my nice overstable disc. If I want to throw something really overstable but get some distance out of it, maybe get a nice skip out of it, I'm going for this thing. I'm not necessarily using it in like super windy conditions all the time because it is Nomi and it can kind of turn over on me a little bit. But when I want a lot of distance and I want a bit more stability than the Luster C Blend, this Halo C Blend is pretty nice. And then my most overstable, kind of my wind disc, the main difference between that Halo C Blend and this one is that this has pretty much no dome to it. It's pretty flat, no heartbeat. It's just kind of, I'm throwing it into wind, very overstable, very controllable. I can do a lot with it. I'm really only throwing it in certain situations. I'm probably gonna be throwing the Emperors for the most part, but I've been loving this thing. And then last up, I just have for rollers, a Roadrunner in the bag. Really only use them for rollers, nothing else. But yeah, that's it. I got minis, I got towels and stuff. I got a rangefinder. I don't think any of you really care about this stuff, honestly. The one thing I do have is this thing that like sticks to disc when you have to grab it out of water. Pretty cool. If you don't have one, I definitely recommend grabbing one. It's been a game changer for me and definitely saved me many discs that I probably wouldn't get with a normal grabber. Anyway, that's my in the bag. I'm excited for this season. I got my first tournament coming up this next weekend at the end of March, last weekend of March. So be on the lookout for that, see how I do for my first tournament. I'm hoping to do well. It should be fun. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.